Okay, we are going to now add in some attributes, and we're going to break it down a little bit further for you so that you understand how the attributes work. That way, then when we move into CSS, you can see the connection that I was talking about last night in class. So we're kind of leading towards something here. We are going to still work with the P tag element, but I have a few more that I'm going to introduce to you as well. But we're going to start with the P since that's something that we're familiar with. And we are going to add the title attribute to the P tag element. So I am going to write it out first, what it should look like in actual code, and then we're going to go backwards and kind of break it down. And I smartened up and I made a color palette. That way I don't have to keep messing with my colors. So, okay, in code, if I were going to add a title attribute to the P tag element, this is what it would look like. Say I'm titling this story. We're meeting the characters of the box model construction company. That's what we've been talking about today, so we might as well title it that. That's the name of the attribute. The content then is going to be meet the characters. Oops. Meet the characters. And then we are going to close our P tag because our box is done, our content is finished. Okay, so that is obviously in code. When we do live code it, it's going to be a heck of a lot prettier than that, but that is the essence of how you add an attribute to a P tag element. Now let's color code this down, and then we're going to break it down even further into the characters, but I just want you to see each piece. So we have our P tags. This is the beginning P tag, and it still does have a closure. It has a member of the holder family there as well, but he's just spread out a little bit more this time. And then we have our closing P tag. Okay, within the spread then we see the attribute name, or I'm sorry, the type of attribute. This is a type of attribute. It's a title attribute. And this is what value we have assigned to the title attribute. So this is a part that even for me, I'm not 100% how to explain it, but this is a look inside my head and how I see it. It may or may not be exactly accurate as you learn to code, but the smooth operator is here. Okay, he's right here. Remember, our smooth operator was up here. What he is doing in there is he's attaching, he's joining those two bits of information. We have a title attribute, and he is connecting that to the information meet characters. That is something that I typed in. That could be anything. You could put any kind of information in there that you need, and it's going to widely vary depending on the use case for these scenarios. But we also have another member of the holder family. Okay, remember him? This is our holder family. I want you to know that he is here. Okay, we have him here. We have the start of a holder tag. And remember I said something about them very frequently kind of joining together and being partners. And I did not tell you already, but we also have another part of the holder family here and here and here, because he's holding that tag together. Okay. Then we have the content, and if you remember correctly, we have, oops, I don't need to do that anymore because I made a palette. This content then, all of this right here, meet the characters, is what is actually going to render in the viewport. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to write meet the characters. Because if Mr. Viewport comes to see this, or the user goes to look at this information, that's the only part they're going to see. They are not going to see any more of the actual code. Everything else that's happening behind the scenes, and then the output then to the viewport would be meet the characters. it is possible to have an empty content tag. And if you have an empty content tag, then nothing is going to show on the viewport, which was a little bit confusing to me at first, because I said to myself, well, you have information, so why is nothing showing up? I remember getting so frustrated because I thought I coded it all correctly, and nothing was showing up. What I realized very quickly about why that was happening, and I'm gonna this is getting a little messy, but I'm going to leave it that way just so that you can kind of see what's happening. What I didn't understand, in my head, I was thinking that meet the characters should show up in the viewport because I typed a title. I was like, well, I have a title here. So I said title, I said equal, and I said meet the characters. So why is it not showing up in the viewport? I remember this perplexing me for quite a while, because in my logical grammar-based mind, I had typed it. It should be showing up somewhere. But what I didn't understand then at that point is this conversation between this start tag here. We have the beginning of a start tag, and then we have the end of, I don't even want to make that color because I don't want to get you confused. Okay, we have the beginning of a start tag, and we have the end of that very same start tag. What's happening in the middle here is actually just a conversation behind the scenes. It's not for the user, it's not for anyone else, it's for the machine. In this particular instance, it's a process, if you will. It's bringing in the smooth operator, and it is taking a title attribute and attaching information that you decide to that particular title attribute. And I didn't know that title was an attribute. I picked it from here. And I already highlighted it because I know we've looked at this quite a bit, but this is the title attribute. There are geniuses behind the scenes here that they actually do some things. They're pre-packed, if you will, for the architect before it's even put into the briefcase for him with different qualities. So it's a conversation between the machine and the smart folks that created this particular conversation. We will not know exactly what has gone through, but we do know, because of W3 schools, that, well, that's not a very good, that it specifies extra information about an element. So that's the pre-packed qualities that have come with that particular attribute. That's just already encoded in probably in machine code, or I don't know if it's exact verbiage or not. But and at the top of this attribute chart, which I was like, you see that's the name of the attribute, which tags can use that attribute, and then a description. I remember once I figured out how to read these charts, I was like, okay, I'm starting to jive with you a little bit. I see what's happening. So this one, the alt attribute, could be attached to the area tag or the image tag or the input tag. So ours, title one, that I was just attaching to the P element, I looked that up before I decided to use that one just to make sure I could use it somewhere down here. Okay, it's a global attribute. I'm not even going to go there today. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. So I can use it on the P element. Or the P tag, just so you know. That's what it means. And it's going to specify extra information about an element. So that's the job of that particular attribute, is to specify extra information. And I feel like that's what I did here. I have something that I want to render on the viewport. I want to render meet the characters because that's the title of my story. And I want all of my users, especially Mr. Viewport, to enjoy the title of my story. So in order to do that, I have to type in my content. That way I can render onto the viewport. But I also have to tell the machine what it is exactly I am putting in there. So I have attached an attribute to the element, and I've let the attribute know that it has some kind of information by using the smooth operator in blue there. And I've connected, I've joined those information. I've kind of packed them together into an invisible box, okay? But I have one better for you. It's not even an invisible box anymore because I have created a character to hopefully have that make more sense. So we are going to move on to, I'm going to do a straight line that way. Trying to keep this as clean as possible because welcome to my notes in my head. They get a little crazy. Okay. New example. We're going to break this down a little bit. Well, not a new example. We're going to use the same exact thing and we're going to see a little bit of the pattern. So when you want to use an attribute, you have to first use Mr. Architect's tag. You're going to have to pull some kind of tag out of his briefcase. So we know that we are already pulling out the P tag. Okay. I'm not going to close my P start tag yet, because I'm not done talking to the machine about this tag yet. I have my tag element established. I pulled it out of the briefcase, but I want to let the machine know that I'm going to attach one attribute. I could attach more than that. I could attach 4, 5, 6 attributes. And that's where I think, for me at least, I really started getting confused in the code, because I'd see 6 attributes within one start tag and I couldn't even find the end tag to the start tag. And I was like, or the end piece to the start tag. I was like, oh, lordy, where are we going? So it does sometimes get very noisy within the code. And for a newbie coder, that is like, what? That's some mind-blowing stuff there. So that's why I'm spending so much time breaking this down, because I felt like a huge light bulb for me went on in seeing the patterns in the code once I understood how all of this worked. Okay, so I'm starting the P tag, and then I want to have an attribute, which I've just shown you on W3 Schools where I got this. And there's a lot of them. I chose title for this particular one. Okay, and then I need to get a smooth operator in here, my little guy with the tennis shoes, because I want to speak to this attribute. I want to give the attribute more information so that it kind of knows what to do, if it needs to do something or it needs to clarify something to the machine, or remember, we're having a conversation, we're talking to the machine, so we're just giving more details to that attribute. That way, whatever pre-packed information that came with that attribute could better do their job. Okay, so we have an attribute. Okay, then we need another member of the holder family here. Because that's going to pack in all of that information and tell that machine, okay, I've got some information that I'm inputting to you, and I want to make sure that you understand that it's input from me and not from something that's already pre-packaged by those, super smart genius coders that we never see. I'm sure other people know who they are, but I don't, because I'm still learning. Okay, so in this particular instance, we had meet the characters, but we're going to leave it blank just so that you know that something has to go in there. And then I'm going to close. That's still my start tag. Again, when I first started, I did not get that, because there might be instances in code where you see 800 words between one start tag. And I couldn't find these supposed invisible boxes that people kept talking about, because I couldn't even figure out where the start tag stopped, because the attributes can go on and on and on, and they can get quite lengthy. So be very careful with that when you're trying to understand what's happening in the code. Okay. And then whatever goes here then is going to be whatever content you want to render up in Mr. Viewport. So for here, it's the meet the characters. And then I'm going to finally decide that I want to end my code. Okay, for you to see this even better, right now in HTML, it's slightly simple, but we haven't tried to talk to any other documents yet. This is all just happening on Mr. Architect's team within his employees. He hasn't tried to then translate that information to Mrs. CSS Decorator's employees, let alone try to then talk to the JavaScript washing machines. So we have to make sure that we understand how things are packaged so that we can then draw the lines from each individual document in CodePen, so from HTML to CSS to JavaScript. So I'm going to show you just yet another way how I kind of see this. Okay, so we could do P. I'm going to do my start tag again. Okay. Instead of putting this part right here, I'm recording. Instead of putting this part right here, attribute, sorry, that was classy, my messenger envelope, I color-coded her purple, but I didn't really explain too much of what she's actually carrying or what goes inside of her. So we're going to spend a little bit more time with classy, the envelope. Okay, classy actually is holding not only the type of attribute, but the information that connects to that particular attribute that we have coded in. So for our sake of this conceptual drawing here, we are going to draw Classy out. Let's make her a little bigger. That way you guys can see. Okay. So really, Classy is an envelope, a messenger envelope that actually, in fact, is going to have the ability to transverse. She's going to be able to go through CSS, JavaScript, HTML with the help of her buddy Link. We haven't met him yet, but he's pretty cool. All right, so I know from up here that I was working with the title attribute. I know it's starting to get a little messy, but bear with me, okay? So I have the title attribute, and I'm gonna put this, just the type of attribute here. It does not have to be title. Back to W3 schools, that could be class, it could be source, it could be width, it could be height, it could be href. There's a lot of different things that could go in that particular part of the envelope. That's a label for the outside of the envelope, and that doesn't show anyone completely what's inside of that envelope. It's just telling you what type of attribute or what type of envelope they're actually using. Inside of the envelope, then, we put meet characters because we wanted to let the machine know that meet characters information is in there. So I put the information in. It's pretty cool because I'm able to even interact with the machine because of this attribute. So I know that inside this envelope is meet the characters. Okay, so that covered all that part of the code. Now I'm going to go back to my black because I'm going to finish the code. Hopefully that visual helps you a little bit understand that all of those are really joined together or assigned values because the smooth operator can do that. It's pretty awesome. If you notice, that smooth operator is not there anymore. He's disappeared. And if you forget who smooth operator is, it's this guy right here. Okay, that's smooth operator, and that's what he looks like in our story. Smooth operator has disappeared. He's done his job. He has put those content into an envelope. He has joined them. He has assigned value to it. He's given it something that helps people remember what's actually in that envelope. So now I can close my start tag, just like I did up here, because my attribute and my information that was attached to my attribute, it just changed a little. I just made it look cuter. I made it look prettier. I put my information inside of Classy, the messenger envelope. Okay. Now we would still have content here. Let's switch back to green, just so you see that it's still content. It's still going to be right here. Meet the characters. Whatever is going to render onto the actual viewport is considered the content. So say I want to put the title meet the characters. Okay, that's the part that Mr. Viewport's going to see, and he's going to be so proud of the work that we have been doing with this code. And then I'm going to switch black to black so that I can close up this P tag. Okay, this helped me understand why I wasn't getting things to render on the viewport, because you're not really just typing it twice. I honestly thought I was like, why in the world am I typing something that I just typed already? Why did I just name and I just said to the attribute meet the characters, but then I'm going to put contact and meet the characters? It was mind blowing to me because I had never coded in my entire life. I didn't understand who was speaking to whom, that there was actually a conversation going on between me and the machine and a middleman. There is another person who has actually created a middle code that can have the conversation between me and the machine. And then you got the viewport as part of it. So it can get really, really messy. So what I figured out was really this purple part is not for the machine. Not for the viewport at all. You're not going to have to see anything on your actual viewport. This is just for a conversation or a saving of values within the actual machine that you are working with, or the browser, or whatever it may be. And then the things between the tags still become the content. All right, now we are going to go over to, this will be the last part of the video. We're going to work a little bit more with envelope messenger here, because I want you to see that we could also put different things in attributes. Say I have a source attribute, and I'm going to keep this purple just so that we're going to work here, and then in the next video, or not in the next video, in the next moment, I'm going to go to another document and show you what this looks like in actual code. And then the video after this, I'm going to go live a little bit so you can see what it looks like. But say you have a source attribute. Okay. Yeah, let's make that C look a little better. Okay, let's go back to W3 schools, and I'm going to look up, where's my search? Does this one not have a search? Well, I'm already down at the S's, so I might as well go now. But all right, so I'm going to pick the source attribute, and I know that it can attach to all of these tags. This thing is really annoying. Their responsive design is not very good. It could be attached to the audio tag, the embed tag, the image tag, the source tag. We have honestly probably only been too familiar with the image tag. We've actually worked a little bit with the script tag, but you don't really know it. But that's how you get JavaScript to communicate with HTML, but we're not even going to go there again today. So we're going to click on image. Okay, and this shows me that, okay, if I have an image tag, that means I want to place an image as the content inside the HTML document. This is pre-packaged with some different qualities so that it knows how to handle. That way HTML knows how to handle that particular type of content. If I'm using that tag, I can also attach these different attributes. I could use source, I could use alt, again the attributes are in red, I could use width, and I could use height. And you see here, this one has 4 attributes: source, alt, width, and height. Okay, and this is really cool about W3 schools too. You can go to try it yourself, and you can actually see what is happening. So you can see that we have an H1 tag that rendered some content on the page that says the image element. Over there's the image element. And then we also have inserted a different box, this one. So there's 2 boxes on this page. There's a heading box, and there is an image box. And the tags, again, are prepackaged with some under the hood information, so they kind of knew what type of boxes that was going to come out of Mr. Architect's briefcase. So the browser then will better handle that information and know how to display it. So let's work with this source attribute here and you see that it says image_girl.jpg. We might as well work with that since that's something that you already saw. So say Classy, the envelope is coming into our code. Her attribute type is source. The information that could go inside of her envelope is image underline girl dot JPEG. Okay, and I got that from here. I know this is an image tag, the beginning of it. I have a source attribute, the information, so that's the name of the envelope. The name of the envelope is source. What's inside of the envelope then is the link to the actual image. This is how the machine knows where to go to find the image. There's different types of paths. There's relative path and absolute paths, or URLs. We'll go there another day, not for today. Just know that this is a link so that the machine knows to say, okay, an image is coming. It's going to come from a particular source. I know that because I have an attribute that I'm now reading. I now have a smooth operator telling me what to join with that particular attribute. And that's going to be the image girl JPEG link. So this is all just a conversation for the machine. That's who the envelope speaks to. It's machine to machine transmission, or machine to machine conversation, or JavaScript to CSS conversation, or HTML to CSS conversation, depending on, there's umpteen possibilities that they could be conversing, and a lot of them happen simultaneously. Okay, let's try it with width. Okay, sorry guys, it looks like I didn't do another layer, so I gotta be a little careful with got a little lazy. I'm gonna stay with purple because purple is a color of messenger and of our attributes. Let's put in alt. This one confused me at first too, because I'm like, okay, now why are we describing, okay, we just told the machine where the image is, why in the world are we now describing it? Okay, yeah, cool. There's a girl in a jacket. Awesome. Okay, what alt does, and you could find this out in W3 schools, in case an image cannot load for whatever reason, say the machine can't find it, the alt attribute is prepackaged with information to tell the browser to just render that text instead. So instead of seeing a picture of the girl in the jacket, you would just see, that's where you see those like dead image things, and then you just have a description of what is particularly in there. Or if it's a, you know, a person with a visual disability and can't see the screen, a screen reader could read that alt information out to them. Okay, so let's work with that and put her into the envelope. So up here, we could have alt, which is the attribute type, and the information that is going in there that the envelope needs to hold is girl in a jacket. Okay, so it could be something like that. All right, let's try width. We use this one a ton. 500 means something. I'm not going to cover different unit types in this video, but it could be pixels. It could be a percentage. There's a lot of different ways that you can measure things in code. Not going to go there today, but just pretend for now it's 500 units of something is going to be the width. So for our purposes, all we really need to know is width is the attribute. The equal sign is my smooth operator. He is doing the joining, the connection. He is assigning a value to that attribute so that the machine knows what to do with that particular information. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that one in here. Okay, let's do width. Okay, again, this is an attribute that we can find in W3 schools on that list. Width. And we could put in this one inside of the envelope, I want to put 500. That way the messenger can carry it wherever it needs to be carried in the future. And I'll show you how she carries that soon. But right now you have to understand that part. Okay. I'm not even going to do height on the envelope because I think that you kind of hopefully get that concept. But height is my attribute, and 600 is the value that would be held inside of the envelope. And again, we have our assignment operator in the middle. His job is to join those two bits of information for the machine, so the machine knows that those two bits of information belong together. They are connected. They have assigned value to that particular attribute. Okay. And one last look. That really, truly, if you go through here, you will see all of those attributes that we just talked about. We put in what? Oh, these are tags here. So we want to go back to attributes, okay? HTML attributes, we looked at source. We looked at alt, which would be up at the ALT. Okay, we looked at the alt attribute. We also looked at width and height. We'll pass height first, so we'll go with that. Height. Okay, and then those are on the right, all of the tags that could go with them. Okay, that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one.